six-figure tech role here in London for some nuts, and lots of them. Do I have any regrets? No. No, I do not. Okay. Let's get into it. Okay, so for those of you who have not seen my face before, hi. My name is Drew and I'm one half of husband duo T and Drew, who create content around lifestyle, travel, and dating and relationships and everything else. I'm here without my husband today because I actually want to discuss a huge life transition that has had a huge impact on myself, on my marriage, on the content and the type of content that we want to create. And I really just wanted to talk openly and candidly about that transition. If this is the first time you are joining this channel, please subscribe. If you enjoy the content, if you like what you see, subscribe. You can also follow myself and my husband on Instagram at It's Andrew Dong, and for my husband it's at T's Journey. Low-key trying to gain more followers than him, so I would say just like prioritize following my Instagram page, his can come later. But yes, I do not know what direction this conversation is going to go. I have a few talking points, of course. There's a lot I want to cover, but what I will say is that I'm hoping that in sharing my experience of leaving the tech industry and leaving my very well-paying job within the tech industry, and the reason why I reference it being well-paying is because it is a very important component of this story, which we'll get to. And money, let's face it, money is important. I'm hoping that it will mirror some of the experiences some of my other corporate professionals are having, or not, but also that it will provide some comfort in some of the challenges and obstacles that I've had to face, and hopefully can help others in doing so, or navigating some of these really key life transitions, because adulting in your 30s is not easy, and we are the first generation to do it. And I think there's this idea that we have it all figured out. We don't have it all figured out, but sometimes you're just gonna make a decision and move forward with it and deal with it, and that is what I have done. So I think walking away from a six-figure role in tech sounds pretty crazy, especially when you haven't got a concrete backup plan. I mean, I know that only 2% of earners in the UK earn above six figures. So you are in the minority, whether we like to admit it or not. And I think there's a lot of privilege that comes with earning that amount of money. And I definitely felt that my journey to earning six figures was largely based on joining the tech industry. So I started off my career as a conference producer, and then went freelance in 2018. I was working with organizations to help them build brand partnerships, organizations that were looking to help and support diverse creatives. And then in, I think, 2019, I got my first big break within the tech space, working for then Facebook and now Meta. That's a whole other thing, child. But I got my first big break, and I remember having the conversation. I remember at the time I was earning like less than 30K a year. I remember having the conversation with a recruiter, and they were asking me about my earning expectations. And I must have given them like, I think I mentioned 40K or something like that. This is from my first role at Facebook. I remember them telling me that the job salary range goes from, I think it was around about 65K to 85K. And listen, I was so gagged. And it just instantly, I just remember thinking, thank God I did not tell them what my salary expectations were, because if I did, I could have shortchanged myself a lot. And of course, my man being Nigerian and being Yoruba, he really helped me negotiate and land a very good position for my first ever role within tech. Fast forward on to 2022, and I'd obviously been working within tech for around 4 years or so. The industry was going through a lot of change. This role came up at one of the largest tech companies in the world, and I was so excited because it aligned with my passions for the media space, for tech, but also for inclusion. And at this point, I think I was earning six figures at Facebook. I fortunately was able to be promoted in that position that I was at Facebook and landed a six-figure role, which was, for me, I'm trying to bring myself back it was just such a privilege. Like, it unlocked so much for me, from my lifestyle to the ability to save, to being able to pay for my wedding. Like, we had the most beautiful wedding ceremony with my husband. I just felt very content, and I had a lot of gratitude for being able to earn what I was able to earn and doing the work that I loved. But I was looking for a change too. And so I ended up landing another position at Google, and I was just so fortunate to work for a brand like Google. Like, it's a dream for so many people. And it was a dream for me. I don't think I ever saw enough people that looked like me working at Google. And so I was just so privileged to be in that position. Fast forward now to 2025, I had so many ideas of what working at Google would look like, and I think the realities were obviously being able to save massively, especially during lockdown, being able to be creative, being able to work in a very dynamic industry, being able to collaborate with some of the smartest people in the world, being able to really kind of see a product from conception right the way through delivering that product to customers and consumers. I think it was so incredible and so fast-paced, and I learned so much. I got to go to Africa for the very first time due to the work that I was doing at my old workplace, which was incredible. But there was also a number of challenges. Like, of course, you get benefits, you get a high-paying salary, you get a lot of autonomy as well, and the promise of job security too. But the industry also went through a number of changes. I remember back in 2023, I think it must have been the first layoffs started to happen, and that's when I really started to see things change. There was a lot of challenges with burnout. I personally faced burnout. I was working crazy hours and being put on so many different projects and so many different areas that I didn't really have experience in, and had to learn very fast and very quickly, which led to a lot of burnout. Also, within the tech space, there really is a coded language in which you have to operate, and that determines a lot of your success and the success that you have within your relationships. And I think you have to really quickly adapt to that culture. Also, with the kind of shrinking workforce and the layoffs, I felt quite stagnated in my career growth. I remember there was a period of such high career growth within the tech industry, and it really did start to feel like there was a ceiling in terms of how far I could progress up the corporate ladder. And that was really, really important for me. Yeah, and after a couple of years, it felt like the work, although there were so many promises of the high-paying job, I started to almost feel a little bit trapped in the role. So creatively, there wasn't as much autonomy within my role as I would have liked. There wasn't the promise of job security that, I guess, a few years prior would have been more normalized. There were so many layoffs. Fast forward to 2024 last year, I was dealing with so much change within my professional career. I was dealing with the constant risk of potentially being laid off, because there were so many layoffs that were happening within the industry, and I was dealing with new management, a new team. There was so much change happening, which led to the first time that I actually took sick leave just due to burnout and due to stress. Within the 10 years in which I've left university, for the first time I had to take time off just to really prioritize myself and prioritize my mental well-being. I was off work for 6 weeks, and it really forced me to reset and rethink about how I was deploying myself, because we have limited resources, we have limited time. What was really important to me? What did I want to achieve with my career? And how could I do it in a way that was more sustainable? Because this clearly was not sustainable. And during that time, I think I was so fearful of leaving my job just due to the financial security it provided. But within those 6 weeks, I came to realize that really time was my most precious commodity. And I wanted a job, and I wanted to do work that allowed me the space and the time to focus on what was most important to me. And what was most important for me was investing in growing my marriage. It was traveling and seeing the world. It was spending time with my family and friends. It was being able to collaborate with them and bring our wild ideas to life, whether that be through new business ventures or through new creative projects. I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful and creative people, but unfortunately I never had the time to really sit down and think about how could I collaborate with them. And so with that realization of just understanding that we have limited time and I want to deploy my time and invest my time in the best possible way in spending more time creating content with my husband and documenting our lives and having challenging conversations and producing more work, I made the decision to leave. And it was a very difficult decision to make. I had lots more to consider. I remember when I first left a job in 2018, first left a corporate role, I didn't have as much to consider. I was single, I was living a relatively low maintenance life. Now I had a husband to consider, I had a lifestyle, I had bills, I had upkeep, I was living in London, and child, we know cost of living ain't cheap. I had to consider all of these things. And I think a part of me, perhaps if I was to prioritize things that I had to consider, I actually even may have stayed in the job, but I realized fundamentally I had to consider myself and what were my needs and what would make the most sense for me. Because if you don't look after yourself, then you won't be able to support all of these other things that depend on you and depend on your health and you being creative and you being able to problem solve and being of sound mind, body. So I made the decision to leave. And on the first day in which I returned back to the workplace, I handed in my resignation. And I remember my manager told me, "I'm glad that you are taking back control." And that affirmed that this was the right decision for me, because I had felt out of control for a while. And I wanted to get back into a position of control. Shout out to SZA. And I felt like that was one of the biggest steps that I could take for myself in order to be in a position of control again. Also, what I will say, on the way into the office, this is how you know God has me, because on the way out of the train station when I was going to hand in my resignation, guess what song came on shuffle? Destiny's Child Free. If you know, you know. Honestly, that song, Destiny's Child Free, cause my mind's made up and my heart is in the right place, yeah. Yeah, that's what I needed to know. But yeah, that's how I made my decision. I think what also made this decision quite difficult to leave was I'm the child of immigrant parents. My parents moved here from Uganda, and I think there is that idea that when you work for an organization like a Google, when you are making six figures, that is success, which it definitely is a part of my success story. But essentially there's this pressure, like you've made it, like that is it, like you can just coast or work incredibly hard, because they'll have you working hard, child, in that position, and you've made it. And also, that's the kind of money that my parents would have only dreamed of making, right? And so for me to share with them that I was thinking about leaving that relative security and a brand like a Google, it was just hard for them to understand why I would do that and just take a bit bet on myself without having a plan. But what I will say is, at the same time, it was hard for them to understand, but once they got it, they got it. My parents have been very encouraging and they have a lot of belief in me. And so if I feel like this is the right decision for me, they will support it. Their biggest worry is money, of course. Like, just have enough money to pay for your bills. And that's my biggest fear too. And that's also my husband. So I have to make sure that we're good. So now with all of that, what is next for me? So right now, I took all of January off. I just needed that time to rest and reset, and I really wanted to honor that break. I am definitely a believer that once you leave, once you make these big life transitions, you need time and space to really think about what you want to do next. And I thankfully was able to engage in my good friend Africa Brooke. She's always been such a great mentor whenever I'm navigating transitions within my life. I was able to really craft the manifesto for this year, and I'm pleased to say that definitely content creation is one of my key focuses now. I really want to hone in on growing this platform, growing how we engage with our community, deepen how we engage with our community, and really just shine a light on travel, on relationships, on representation. That's really a key focus for me, and storytelling and community building. I also really want to focus more on my health, like my mental health, my physical health. I want to be in the best physical state that I ever will be. I want to really kind of sow the seeds. I want to focus on my diet. I really want to eat clean. I really want to be a genuine believer that if you're of good mind, body and soul, like you can do incredible things. I also want to become more of a risk taker. Like my guiding word this year is audacity, and I really want to embrace that, be audacious, take more risks, be audacious in how I show up. I think for a long time, I was being very singular in how I thought of myself. Like I need to be seen as a program lead. I need to be seen as a tech professional. And that looks like a very specific thing. And how do I show up in that very specific way? But now I'm really just like allowing my life to blend into each other and really just show up in all of my diversity and bring all of these different elements of myself into the work that I want to do, and really being audacious and taking risks with that. So I'm on that journey too. And I think for other people, if you're considering leaving a job that no longer serves you or leaving an environment that no longer serves you, the best advice that I can give is think about your dependents, think about yourself, what you want to achieve. I think it's really important that we need to continue to check in with ourselves on what it is that we want to achieve, what is the lifestyle we want to have, and what is priority for us. I think you need to constantly check in, even every 6 months or so, to provide yourself some answers and some clarity around that, because we're allowed to know that our goals and our ambitions can change, our dreams can change, and that is okay. Think about your dependents, of course. If you're single, like you may be more likely to take these risks. If you're in a relationship, if you have a family, if you have kids, I really think considering your dependents is really important. Money is important too, so make sure that you have enough savings or that you have a backup plan to make money in order to make that transition more comfortable where possible. And finally, think about what is it you're willing to risk. If you are willing to risk downsizing your lifestyle or your place or where you rent in order to achieve a longer term goal, those things definitely have to be factored in. For us, for sure, we were fortunate to have some savings to tide us over. Thankfully, we have other ways of making money too, and through the other ventures that I've spoken about. But yeah, it was really, really important for us to just really have clarity on what are the answers to those questions. And finally, like, I would love to hear other people's experiences and thoughts and perspectives. Like, are you thinking about making a big transition into entrepreneurship and taking that bet on yourself? What does that look like? Do you have any questions for me and how I'm navigating this? I'm still figuring it out. Listen, I took January off. February, I feel like is my first real month in 2025. So I'm starting to focus on some of my ventures, like the peanut butter business. Oh, actually, let me show that. Yes, but nuts about. This is also one of my babies. Me and my mum and our nut butter business. Listen, we're gonna take over the world. So that's a key focus for me. Content creation is a key focus. Building up my expertise as a thought leader and brand expert. These are all of the things that I'm gonna be focusing on, which I'm super excited about. But yes, with that, I'm glad I got this video out there for myself, but also for you guys, so that you know what's been happening in our lives. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions as well, like the comment space is open, our comments are open, our DMs are open. Like, as always, we love to hear from you guys. And I'm also excited to share more of this side of me. I feel like this is a side of myself that I don't tend to bring, the corporate baddie energy and expertise. I tend not to bring that too much to our content, but as I mentioned, I want to be audacious. I want to honor the different parts of myself and blend them into the work. So yeah, I'm excited to do that. But I hope you enjoyed this video without T. I already miss him, but we'll be back very soon. Thank you. Bye.